I was looking for my birth certificate when I found the envelope. It was yellowed and thick, wedged behind old tax folders in the cabinet. My name was written on it in my father's sharp handwriting. Not family. Not bills. My full name. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were bank statements. Not one. Dozens. Dates from when I was 6, 7, 8. All the way to last year. I barely breathed as I read the number at the bottom. $80,000. I whispered, "This has to be a mistake." My chest burned as every memory hit at once. My mother crying at the kitchen table saying, "We can't afford college." My father snapping, "Don't dream too big." The scholarships I was pushed to apply for like debts I already owed. I walked into the living room with the papers in my hand. "Mom," I said. "Dad." They looked up together. I held the pages out. "What is this?" My mother's face flickered. Just for a second. Then it smoothed. My father didn't even blink. "Where did you get that?" "In your cabinet," I said. "It has my name on it. It's a college fund. $80,000. My mother stood slowly. "You shouldn't go through our things." "Answer me," I said. "You told me you were broke." My father crossed his arms. "Lower your voice." "Tell me the truth," I snapped. My mother said softly, "There's no money anymore." I stared at her. "What?" "It's gone," my father said. "We used it." "You spent my college fund?" My voice cracked. "For the family," he answered. "On what?" I demanded. My mother swallowed. "Your sister's wedding. Her business." I laughed once, sharp and hollow. "You're joking." "No," my father said. "It was an investment." "In who?" I yelled. "Her." That's when my sister walked in. She was on her phone, smiling, glowing, wearing clothes I could never afford. "What's going on?" she asked. I lifted the papers. "Did you know about this?" She glanced at them and shrugged. "Oh, that money." I felt dizzy. "You knew." "It was just sitting there," she said. "Mom said I needed it more." I turned to my parents. "You didn't ask me?" My mother touched my arm. "You're strong. You always were." I slapped her hand away. "So that makes it okay to steal from me?" My father snapped, "Watch your mouth." "You robbed me," I shouted. My sister scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. Do you even hear yourself?" I said. "That money was my future." She rolled her eyes. "Relax. Loans exist." My mother whispered, "We thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" I screamed. "That I mattered less?" My father said flatly, "Family comes first." I laughed again, and this time I cried with it. "Then what am I?" Silence. My sister sighed loudly. "You were never good with money anyway." I stared at her. "Excuse me?" "You'd probably waste it," she shrugged. "I actually turned it into something." My mother winced but didn't deny it. I looked at my father. "Say she's wrong." "You didn't?" "I worked 2 jobs in high school," I said. "I skipped trips. I wore old shoes. I ate noodles." He shrugged. "Life is sacrifice." I whispered, "And I was the sacrifice." My mother cried then. "We love you." I shook my head. "Love doesn't steal." My sister snapped, "Stop making everything about you." I snapped back, "It was always about you." My father turned cold. "Enough. You're acting ungrateful." I froze. "Ungrateful?" "We raised you," my mother said. "We fed you." I laughed bitterly. "So I owed you my future?" My sister checked her phone again. "This is exhausting." That's when I understood. They weren't sorry. Not one of them. I gathered the papers slowly. "I hope," I said quietly, "that whatever you bought her with my life was worth it." My mother whispered, "Don't talk like that." I met her eyes. "I just lost my family." My father said nothing. My sister didn't look up. I walked out of that room feeling like a ghost. By the time I reached my bedroom, I wasn't shaking anymore. I was empty. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. They used my dream like spare change. And told me to smile about it. That night, the word home stopped meaning anything at all. I stood in the doorway and said, "You spent my future without asking me. How did you think that was okay?" My father didn't move from his chair. "I already told you. You owed your sister that." "Owed?" I laughed. "For what? Breathing?" "For being family," he said. "For loyalty." I held up the statements. This was loyalty. This was years of you pretending to save for me. My mother started crying again. "We didn't pretend. Things just changed." "They changed in her favor," I said. They always do. My sister walked in right then, smiling like she walked into a party. Why is everyone so loud? I turned to her. Because you drank my life like free soda. She frowned. That's rude. I snapped. So is stealing. My father warned, watch your tone. She crossed her arms. You're acting like a baby. I lost $80,000, I said. How should I act? Grateful, my mother whispered. I stared at her. Grateful for being robbed? She sobbed louder. We gave you everything. You gave me rules, I said. And leftovers. My sister rolled her eyes. Don't start this again. Again? I said. This is the first time you admitted you took what was mine. She shrugged. I needed it more. My chest burned. Needed for what? A bigger wedding cake. She snapped. And my business. Which is going amazing, by the way. I said, because my money paid for it. My father stood up slowly. Your sister is building a future. So was I said. He shook his head. Not a real one. I breathed in hard. What does that mean? It means, he said, dreams don't pay bills. My grades might have, I shot back. My mother wiped her face. We didn't think you'd go far anyway. The room went silent. I whispered, say you didn't mean that. She wouldn't look at me. My sister laughed nervously. See? Even Mom agrees. I said, I thought you were my parents. My father said, we are. And we made a choice. About me, I said. He answered, for us. My sister checked her phone and said, can we be done? This is awkward. I said, my life ended tonight and you're bored. She snapped, get over it. People suffer worse things. My mother reached out. Please don't hate us. I pulled away. Hate isn't strong enough yet. My father sighed. We taught you to be tough. You taught me I was disposable, I said. My sister scoffed. You're exaggerating. I said, then give it back. She laughed. I already spent it. On what? I asked quietly. She smiled. Everything. My mother gasped. Don't say it like that. It's true, she said. Trips. Marketing. Clothes. Stuff that matters. I said, I didn't. My father stepped closer. Enough drama. You should apologize. I blinked. For what? For causing tension, he said. For crying, my mother added. For embarrassing us, my sister said. I laughed, loud and broken. You stole my future and want an apology? My father snapped, you are ungrateful. I whispered, you are unbelievable. My sister said, say you're sorry and let's move on. I said, I won't. My mother begged, please? I shook my head. Not this time. My father said, then don't expect help. I said, I never had it. The silence grew heavy. My sister muttered, you always ruin everything. I answered, you always took everything. My mother cried harder. Why are you doing this? I said, because you did this first. My father sat down again. Conversation is over. I folded the papers carefully. So is my loyalty. My sister scoffed. Dramatic. I said, honest. My mother whispered, we still love you. I looked at her and said, then love me when I walk away. No one stopped me. No one chased me. And that hurt worse than the theft ever could. I paused at the door and turned back. One more thing, I said. Don't call me when rent is due. Don't call me when she fails. Don't call me when you finally see what you raised. My father barked, don't threaten us. I'm not, I said. I'm warning myself. My sister smirked. You won't last a month out there. I nodded. Maybe. But I'll starve with my name attached to my hunger. My mother whispered, you're cruel. I replied, no. I'm finally honest. My father waved me away. Go cool off. I said, I've been cold my whole life. My sister muttered, drama king. I said, enjoy your throne. It's built on my bones. Then I stepped out and closed the door softly, like the sound of a last heartbeat. All on you. I packed in silence. My bag was light. Too light for a lifetime. I zipped it and whispered, that's it. The house was asleep or pretending to be. I stood by the door and waited for something to stop me. Nothing did. I stepped outside. Cold air hit my face and I welcomed it. I texted my friend, can I come over? 3 dots blinked. Then, now. Yeah, I typed. I messed up. Doors open, he replied. Always. I walked for blocks with my phone glowing like a tiny moon in my hand. Every step felt wrong and right at the same time. When I reached his place, the porch light was on. He opened the door wide. "You okay?" I shook my head. He pulled me inside. "Talk." I dropped the bag and laughed once. "If I do, I might scream." "Then scream," he said. I sat hard on the couch. "They stole my college fund." He blinked. "They what?" 80,000, I whispered. "All gone." He stared. "Tell me you're lying." "I wish," I said. "They spent it on my sister." "Say her wedding," he said. "And her business." He swore softly. "That's insane." "They told me to be grateful," I said. "For what?" he snapped. "For the theft," I answered. "For being born." He paced. "Did you fight them?" "I begged," I said. "Then I bled." His jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be here because of that." "I shouldn't be anywhere," I said. He sat across from me. "You're safe here." "For tonight," I said. "For as long as you need," he corrected. I swallowed. "I don't have anything." "You have a phone," he said. "And a pulse." I cracked a smile. "Barely." He leaned forward. "Look at me." I did. "You didn't lose tonight," he said. "You escaped." "I ran," I argued. "Same thing sometimes," he replied. I pulled out my phone. "It still hurts." "Show me," he said. I opened the family group chat. Their names glowed on the screen like warnings. My mother had texted, "Please come back." My father, "Don't be childish." My sister, "You'll regret this." I smiled weakly. "They're still talking." "They always do," he said. "They just never listen." I hovered over the chat. My thumb shook. He said quietly, "You don't owe anyone access to your heart." I whispered, "They're my blood." He answered, "Blood doesn't mean permission." I took a deep breath. Then clicked the option. Delete. Confirm. The screen went clean. I stared at it and whispered, "It's gone." He nodded. "So are the lies." My chest hurt like something had been ripped out. I said, "I feel empty." He said, "Empty is better than poisoned." I leaned back and closed my eyes. He stood. "Water." "Yeah," I said. "Please." When he came back, I took a sip and winced. "It tastes real." He smiled. "Welcome back to life." I laughed quietly, then stopped. "What do I do now?" "We make a plan," he said. "I don't even know where to start." He shrugged. "We start with sleep." I shook my head. "I'm scared." He said gently, "So am I. For you. That's normal." "I feel like I died in that house," I admitted. "Then consider this your funeral," he said. "And your rebirth." I looked at him. "You always talk like a movie." He shrugged. "You always needed a hero." I smiled, small and broken. "What if I fail?" He said without hesitation. "Then we fail loudly and try again." I swallowed. "They said I wouldn't survive without them." He scoffed. "They said the Titanic couldn't sink." I laughed again, harder this time. He grinned. "See? Still breathing." I leaned forward. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not telling me it'll be okay," I said. "For telling me it's hard instead." He nodded. "Hard means real." I lay down on his couch. The ceiling stared back at me. I whispered, "I don't have a family anymore." He answered from the doorway, "You're starting one." The room went quiet. For the first time all night, my phone didn't buzz. The silence pressed close. Not cruel. Not loud. Just honest. I turned on my side and hugged my bag like it was something alive. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, something finally stopped screaming. I closed my eyes and thought I walked away with nothing. Then I corrected myself. I walked away with me. I sat on the edge of my friend's table staring at my laptop and said, "I applied to 20 jobs." He asked, "How many called back?" I smiled tiredly. 0. He slid me a coffee. "Welcome to adult life." I opened my inbox. "Welcome to rejection." He leaned over my shoulder. "Read one." I clicked and cleared my throat. "Thank you for your interest. We regret." "Stop," he said. "I already know the rest." I closed the email. "They didn't even read my name." "They read your silence," he said. "Which isn't your fault." I sighed. "Scholarships are next." He tapped the screen. "Apply like you're stealing your future back." I nodded and typed. My phone buzzed an hour later. I answered softly, "Hello? Is this you?" a woman asked. "Yes," I said. "This is the college counseling office." Can you come in today? I swallowed. Yes. I'm on my way. I hung up and stared at my friend. He grinned. You're smiling. I forgot how, I admitted. The office smelled like paper and hope. A woman with kind eyes pointed to a chair. Sit. I sat. She folded her hands. Tell me your story. I hesitated. It's messy. Messy is honest, she said. So I told her. Not everything. Just enough. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she said, You've been surviving on empty. I nodded. I'm tired of it. She slid a paper toward me. Then fill something real. What is that? I asked. A chance, she replied. And a lot of work. I laughed softly. I'm good at work. She smiled. I can see that. I don't want pity, I said quickly. Good, she said. I don't offer it. What do you offer? I asked. Options, she answered. I felt something shift in my chest. I'll take any. She leaned back. You won't take any. You'll take earned. I said, I don't care what it costs. She shook her head gently. You do. It costs sleep, pride, comfort. I exhaled. I've already paid those. She nodded. Then we'll talk scholarship and work study. My phone buzzed again. It was a job email. I opened it and whispered, Interview. She smiled. See? Doors aren't locked. They're just heavy. I stood. Thank you. She said, Thank yourself. I left the office and ran all the way home. My friend looked up. You look different. I feel dangerous, I said, breathing hard. In a good way? He asked. In a determined way. That night I worked at a diner. The manager said, You're late. I said, I'll be early tomorrow. She studied me. You hungry? For money? I replied. She smirked. You'll fit right in. I carried plates and swallowed insults. A man snapped his fingers at me. I snapped back in my head. I counted tips like prayers. 10, 20, $3 and hope. When I got home, my friend handed me another coffee. How'd it go? He asked. I survived, I said. That's your brand? He joked. I opened my laptop again. Another rejection. Another. Then one approval. Partial. I stared at the email and whispered, You're real. My friend hugged me hard. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. I just breathed. The next week I worked mornings. I studied afternoons. I applied at night. 4 hours of sleep felt like gold. I told the counselor, I'm tired. She said, Then rest when you succeed. I told my friend, I'm scared. He said, Then let fear pay rent in your courage. I told myself, I'm done begging. The bank app opened. My balance blinked small. I smiled anyway. Every dollar felt earned. Every ache felt owned. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. I wasn't chasing their regret. I was chasing my sunrise. One night my friend asked, Do you miss them? I thought, then answered, I miss who I thought they were. He nodded. That's grief. I closed my laptop and whispered, I'm still here. The ceiling didn't answer. But I did. I set an alarm and faced tomorrow like a debt I planned to pay. Not with tears. With time. And finally, I slept like someone with something to protect. My life wasn't over. It was under construction. And I was holding the tools. I read the email 3 times before I believed it. Then I whispered, I got it. My friend looked up from his phone. Got what? The scholarship, I said. It's real. He jumped up. Say that again. I'm not paying full tuition, I laughed. I'm not drowning. He wrapped his arms around me. You're rising. I breathed out slowly. I'm finally breathing. A week later, I unlocked the door to my new place. The walls were cracked. The heater screamed like a dying cat. The bed frame tilted like it had given up on life. I dropped my bag and smiled. Mine? I said. My friend walked in behind me. This place looks tired. So do I replied. We match. He grinned. At least it's quiet. I looked around. Quiet is luxury. That night I sat on the floor and ate noodles. I lifted the plastic fork and said, Dinner with dignity. My friend laughed from the doorway. You're weird. I'm free, I said. He stood serious then. I'm proud of you. I swallowed. Say it one more time. I'm proud of you. I nodded like it meant oxygen. The next morning I woke up and checked my phone. A tag notification. My sister's name. I opened it. Photos from months ago. Her shiny storefront. Grand opening balloons. Comments under it now were different. Any updates? Are you closed? This page is dead. I stared at the screen and whispered, so is your dream. I didn't smile. Not yet. My phone buzzed. Mom. I let it ring. Again. Then a text. Call me. I didn't. Then another. Please. I locked the screen. That night my friend asked, you okay? I said, they've started again. Calls? He asked. Guilt, I replied. He leaned back. Don't answer. I won't, I said. But it's hard, he said. It's harder to remember who they were, I whispered. The next week I worked and studied and slept. Barely. I liked it that way. Busy meant safe. Then another notification. A post. My sister again. This one wasn't shiny. She wrote, real ones stay during storms. I almost laughed. I showed my friend. He said, translation? She needs money, I replied. That night Mom called 3 times. I let it ring 4. Then she texted, she's not okay. I stared at the message. My finger hovered. Then I put the phone down and said out loud, neither was I. The next day I saw more posts. Closed early today. Supply issues. Please support small businesses. I breathed in and felt something wrong. Relief. Then shame. I muttered, I'm a bad person. My friend shook his head. You're a healing one. I checked the scholarship portal again. Proved. Still standing. I whispered, I didn't steal this. The cracked wall listened quietly. Another text buzzed. Mom again. This time longer. We're scared. We made mistakes. Come talk. I almost laughed. Instead I whispered, so was I. I blocked the number. My chest hurt. Then lightened. The next morning I bought groceries with my own money. Not pity money. Not blood money. My money. I unpacked it slowly. I said, this is dinner. No one argued. No one guilt. No one watched. Privacy tasted better than love ever did. That night I checked on her business page again. It hadn't updated. Messages were piling up unanswered. I stared at the empty comment box. I could type. I typed. Then deleted. Typed again. Deleted. I threw the phone onto my bed. I said, I'm not your audience anymore. My friend called from the kitchen. You want tea? Yeah, I said. Strong. He carried it in and asked, still watching the fall? I admitted, a little. He said, just don't live in it. I nodded. I'm building my own weather. The next call came from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. My mother's voice broke through. It's me. I closed my eyes. She whispered, she's failing? I said quietly, I didn't fail her. She cries, Mom said. I swallowed. So did I. She's scared, she tried. So was I replied. She whispered, we need you. I answered, no. You miss me. She started crying. I hung up. Then I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I waited for guilt. It didn't come. Peace did. Small and fragile. But real. I lay back and stared at the ceiling. I whispered, I made it out. And somewhere, without sound, something finally fell apart in the house I no longer lived in. While I stayed standing here. The knock came like an insult. I looked through the door peephole and whispered, no. My friend stood behind me and said, is it them? I nodded. He asked, what do you want to do? I said, face it. I opened the door. My mother's eyes were red. My father's shoulders were lower. My sister stood between them like a child who finally learned fear. My mother rushed forward. Please. I stepped back. Don't. My father cleared his throat. We need to talk. I said, you had your turn. My sister whispered, I messed up. I laughed once. You don't say. My mother reached for my arm. We're family. I shook her off. We were. My father said, let us in. I hesitated. Then opened the door wider. They stepped inside like strangers. No one sat. My mother cried standing. I don't have time for this, I said. She begged, make some time. My father whispered, we're desperate. I crossed my arms. About time. My sister looked at the floor. I lost everything. I said, now you get it. My mother said, your sister needs help. I asked, so do I. My father's voice hardened. You always did. I snapped, but I never got it. My sister finally looked up. Her lips trembled. I didn't think it would end like this. I said, I didn't think you'd steal from me. She flinched. Mom whispered, she doesn't have money for rent. I laughed softly. She should try gratitude. Dad snapped. Enough. I tilted my head. You used to speak softer when you stole. My mother sobbed louder. My sister whispered, I'm scared. I answered, I was terrified. My father stepped closer. You're being cruel. I stood my ground. You taught me. My mother dropped to her knees. That broke something inside me. She cried, I raised you. I whispered, you raised her. My sister covered her mouth. My father shouted, we need help. I yelled, so did I. Silence crashed between us. My mother finally said, we made mistakes. I replied, you made choices. My sister knelt beside Mom and sobbed into her shoulder. I watched my sister shrink. I asked, where's your pride now? She whispered, dead. I said, good. My father clenched his fists. You owe us mercy. I laughed. You spent mine. Mom sobbed, please? I pointed at the door. There it is. My sister gasped. You'd throw us out? I asked, did you pack my future carefully? She blinked. Mom screamed, you're heartless. I whispered, I'm protecting one. My father said slowly, you'll regret this. I smiled sadly. I already survived it. My sister crawled toward me and grabbed my leg. I froze. She cried, don't let me drown. I gently peeled her fingers off. I said softly, you learned to swim in my ocean. My mother collapsed against the wall. My father stared at me like he had never seen me before. Good. I stepped back and opened the door. Leave, I said. My sister shook. Where will we go? I answered, anywhere but my soul. My father whispered, son? I cut him off. I buried that word. My mother sobbed, this isn't you. I said, this is me when I finally matter. My sister tried to hug me. I stepped back. Don't, I said. She whispered, I'm sorry. I looked into her wet eyes. Not angry. Not soft. Just tired. I said, apologies don't rebuild stolen futures. My father clenched his jaw. We gave you life. I replied, you tried to take mine. My mother wailed. I didn't flinch. I stood aside and said again, go. They walked out slowly. No screaming. No final words. Just broken footsteps. My sister turned once at the door and whispered, I was wrong. I whispered back, you were chosen. The door closed. The lock clicked. My heart pounded hard. Then slower. Then steady. I leaned against it and slid down. My friend stood silently. Finally he said, you okay? I answered, no. Then I corrected myself. I will be. And for the first time since that envelope I believed it. I stood near the door and said, I'm not shouting anymore. My mother looked up like she expected it. Then stay. I shook my head. I'm leaving again. My father scoffed weakly. You've already made your point. I answered, no. I only made my escape. My sister wiped her face. You don't understand how bad it is. I said softly, I understand exactly. Mom whispered, we need you. I replied, you needed me back then. Dad snapped, we're here now. I said, late is louder than never. Silence followed. I'm saying no, I continued. Not in anger. Not in tears. Just no. Mom reached forward again. Why are you doing this? I said, because you broke things that don't grow back. Dad swallowed. Like what? I looked at him. Trust. Safety. My name in your mouths. My sister shook her head. I said I was sorry. I replied, sorry doesn't return years. She whispered, I was stupid. I nodded. And I paid. Mom said, we fed you. I answered, and starved me of truth. Dad muttered, we tried our best. I said, you tried for her. My sister flinched. I added, I was the cost. Mom cried again. You're hurting us. I said, you taught me how pain works. Dad said, don't turn into this. I whispered, this is what you shaped. My sister slid down the wall and covered her face. I can't breathe, she sobbed. I replied, I forgot how to. Mom hugged her. She's breaking. I said, I already did. Dad stepped closer. What will it take? I thought. Then answered, nothing from you. He stared. You don't want closure? I smiled slightly. I got it. My sister looked up. Where? I touched my chest. Here. She whispered, I was wrong. I nodded. I know. Mom begged, just one more chance. I shook my head. Some doors locked from the inside. Dad's voice cracked. You're our son. I replied, I'm my own. Silence pressed us again. Mom said, if you go, we lose everything. I looked around at their faces. You spent everything already. My sister whispered, I don't recognize you. I said, good. I didn't recognize myself with you. Dad clenched his jaw. You'll regret this. I answered, I regretted staying. Mom reached for me. Please. I stepped back. Don't make this uglier. My sister tried to stand and failed. I whispered, get up. She looked at me shocked. I said again, you're stronger than you think. Just not honest before. She slowly rose. Dad said, you're changing us. I replied, no. I'm refusing you. Mom sobbed, we love you. I met her eyes. Then learn what love costs. She said, what does it cost? I answered, everything you wouldn't spend. Dad swallowed. My sister whispered, do you hate me? I thought, then said, I outgrew you. She cried harder. I said, that's not revenge. Dad muttered, then what is it? I replied, freedom. Mom wiped her face. You think you've won. I shook my head. I think I survived. She whispered, we'll be alone. I said, so was I. Dad said softly, say something kind before you go. I paused. Then I said, I hope you heal. My sister whispered, I hope you stay. I answered, I hope you change. Dad asked, is that it? I nodded. That's everything. I opened the door. Mom rushed forward. One more hug. I stepped aside. Not today. My sister whispered my name. I replied quietly, keep it. I'm making a new one. Dad stared at the floor. I said, goodbye. No one followed. No one grabbed me. Behind me, the room finally stopped breathing. Ahead of me, the hall stretched wide. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't bruise. I walked away without counting steps. I didn't get revenge. I got my life. And it fit perfectly in my hands, light and alive for the first time ever. My friend leaned against the doorframe and said, cap and gown already? I looked at the hanger and said, feels like armor. He smiled. You earned it. I answered, I survived it. He crossed the room. Same thing sometimes. I touched the cloth. I never thought I'd get here. He said, you walked. I crawled, I corrected. He laughed softly. Still counts. I checked my phone and groaned. Another email from the counselor. He asked, good or scary? Both, I said. She wants me in her office. He raised his brows. Sounds official. I went anyway. The counselor folded her hands and said, almost done. I replied, I still don't believe it. She smiled. Belief follows proof. You brought the proof. I shrugged. I brought fatigue. She pushed a folder toward me. And results. I opened it. This feels fake. She leaned forward. What do you feel? Light, I said. And heavy. She nodded. That's growth. I asked, does it ever stop hurting? She answered, it stops ruling you. I thought about that. I walked home and told my friend, she says pain gets quiet. He said, good. It was loud. I cooked dinner and said, listen to this. He leaned in. I'm listening. I'm not angry anymore. He paused. That's big. I'm not owed anymore either. He smiled. Even bigger. I sat down. I'm just done. He raised his glass. To done. I clinked it. To free. My phone buzzed. I looked. Unknown number. I didn't answer. My friend asked, them? I said, probably ghosts. He nodded. Don't invite them in. Later I walked by the mirror and stopped. I said out loud, you look different. My friend peeked in. Better? Stronger, I whispered. He grinned. Same thing. We sat on the floor and talked about nothing. Classes. Gossip. Weather. Then I said quietly, do you know what hurts the most? He turned. What? That they're missing this, I said. All of it. They chose that, he replied. I know, I said. It still stings. He asked, do you miss them? I answered, I miss an idea. He nodded. Ideas fade. I said, so do debts. He laughed. Look at you, philosophical. I shrugged. Graduation does that. The next day I tried on my cap. I looked ridiculous. I said, I look like a square. My friend said, a valuable one. I tossed it. I worked too hard for this joke. He caught it and placed it on my head. Stand still. I glanced at him. What if tomorrow isn't real? He said, then today still is. I smiled. You're unfairly wise. He laughed. You rubbed off on me. I opened my laptop and stared at my balance. Not huge. Not zero. What? I said, this number doesn't own me anymore. He replied, good. You own it. I closed the lid and breathed. I opened my drawer and found the old envelope. I hesitated. Then I ripped it. My friend watched and said, funeral? Freedom, I answered. Paper fell like confetti. I whispered, goodbye. He asked, to what? I replied, to debt they named love. That night I dreamed of doors. Not closing. Opening. What? In the morning I told my friend, I dreamed of space. He said, take some with you. I packed my bag for graduation. Just water. Phone. Keys. Everything else was already inside me. I stood in front of the door and said, I did it. My friend said, say it again. I did it. He hugged me anyway. I laughed into his shoulder. You're sweaty. He snorted. You're alive. We stepped outside together. The air felt new. I whispered, thank you. He said, for what? For not letting me turn to stone, I answered. He said, stone can build too. I smiled. I chose motion. He nodded. We walked. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. What I lost made room. What I gained made sense. And for once, success didn't feel loud. It felt quiet. Like peace. Like mine. My friend nudged me and whispered, front row. You're famous. I tugged at my gown and said, I feel like a costume. He smiled. You earned the suit. I scanned the crowd without meaning to. Then I saw them. My stomach tightened. My friend followed my eyes. You okay? I nodded. I just found my past. He asked, want to leave? I shook my head. No. I want to arrive. The announcer cleared his throat. I watched faces blur. Then my mother stood out. Smaller. Tired. My father beside her looked older than I expected. My sister sat between them. No shine. No fire. Just quiet. My friend whispered, do you want me to block them? I said, no. I can see clearly now. He studied me. You're shaking. I'm not, I answered honestly. I'm breathing. Names echoed through the loudspeakers. My turn crept closer. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. A message. I didn't open it. My friend teased, celebrity problems. I whispered, ghost problems. He chuckled. Ignore the haunting. The announcer said my name. I stood. My friend squeezed my shoulder. This is yours. I walked. The stage felt long. Then short. Then infinite. The dean shook my hand and smiled. Congratulations, she said. I said, thank you. Not to her. To every night that tried to break me. I turned toward the crowd. I didn't look for them. They found me anyway. My mother pressed her hands together. My father didn't clap. My sister wiped her eyes. I didn't wave. I didn't scowl. I just nodded at the sky and walked off the stage. My friend was waiting with a grin. How'd it feel? He asked. Like oxygen, I said. We slipped out toward the back while everyone else waited. He asked, running? I smiled. Arriving elsewhere. In the hallway a voice said my name. I stopped. I turned. My mother stood there alone. My father hovered behind her. My sister stayed back. Mom said, you looked good. I sighed. Thank you. She folded her hands. We're proud. I waited. Nothing else came. I said, I already know. Her eyes filled. Dad stepped forward. Son. I raised my hand gently. Not today. My sister whispered from behind, I'm sorry. I looked at her. Really looked. I said, I know. Mom said, can we talk? I checked the time on my phone. I said, we just did. Dad said, you don't have to be cold. I answered, I'm not cold. I'm distant. Mom whispered, that's worse. I replied, distance doesn't bleed. My sister sniffed. Do you ever think about us? I said, sometimes. When? She asked. Right before I choose peace, I answered. She looked down. Mom said, we want to be part of your life. I said, you were. You chose out. Dad clenched his jaw. So that's it. I nodded. This is it. Mom reached for my sleeve. I stepped back. She whispered, please? I replied, please what? She hesitated. Forgive us. I inhaled and spoke softly. I'm done carrying that. Dad asked, so you won't forgive? I said, I won't pretend. My sister said, I miss you. I answered, I miss myself too. Mom cried quietly. I said, I don't hate you. Dad whispered, then why does this hurt? I replied, because love doesn't vanish. It just changes addresses. My sister looked up. Where did yours go? I touched my chest. Home. Silence crowded us. Then I stepped aside. I'm late, I said. Mom asked, for what? I smiled. My future. I started to go. Dad said, wait. I stopped. He said, we didn't mean to lose you. I answered, you didn't mean to keep me. No one argued. I walked away. My friend caught up and asked, all done? All done, I said. Outside, sunlight pressed into everything. He asked, how do you feel? I answered, light. We reached the steps. I sat and texted one line to an unsaved number. I wish you well. Then I blocked it. My friend peeked. Closure. Enough, I said. The crowd behind us roared. Names. Cheers. Lives. Ahead the city waited. Not perfect, but mine. My friend said, ready? I stood. I've been ready since they left me, I said. He grinned. Let's go. We walked into noise and color and tomorrow. I didn't look back. Not once. Because forward finally felt like belonging. And this time I kept it.